big advantage of biking is also that you you only see it, but you hear it, you smell it, and it's so much different because you can go make a bus tour or drive by car somewhere, but you don't use all your senses. And by biking, you do that.
Welcome back to the Boat Bike Tours podcast. My name is Ennie. I usually work in sales and marketing for Boat Bike Tours in our Amsterdam office. And I'm going to be your host for this episode. And I'm going to talk about a really interesting topic together with Jeroen. We're going to discuss learning through lifelong travel together. Can you please start introducing yourself and tell a little bit about your background and how you came to Boat Bike Tours?
Sure, I like to do that. Yes, I'm Jeroen Kramer, and I live in Reewijk, in the middle of Netherlands. And I work for Boat Bike Tours now for 4 years. And before that, I was a teacher on a primary school for 42 years. I did it with a lot of fun. I really loved working with the children. But at a certain moment, I was 63, and I still like to work with the children, but all the other things that are around, making reports, meetings, and all the things, I get fed up with it. So I decided to stop, to do an early retirement. And after that, I decided, well, what am I going to do now? My whole life, I've been traveling a lot. And I decided maybe I can do something in this business. And I did the training to be a tour leader. And during the training, Boat Bike Tours already invited me for a talk, and I got to work for them, and I really love working for Boat Bike Tours. It's great to be outside, to meet a lot of people, and to give them a lot of information on the tour. That's what I really like to do.
And do you think your background as a teacher helps you?
It certainly helps me. It's as a teacher, you need to be patient. And sometimes when you have guests, you need to be patient as well because, they have their special wishes. As a teacher, I'm used to adapting to that. And also because as a primary teacher, you give information on all subjects. And on a tour, I really like to talk with the guests about the things that they're seeing on the way, geographical things, but also nature things. And because I've worked as a teacher, it's very easy for me to tell them about things because I'm used to telling things to children and now to more grown-ups.
Mm-hmm. That's funny.
Yeah.
So
it is, yeah.
When you give the safety briefings and everything on board, does that kind of remind you?
Yeah, that's for sure. It's a lot of people, a lot of colleagues of mine think sometimes it's not very easy to give the briefings, but for me, it's very easy. I just act like I'm standing in front of a class, and it's very easy to tell them about what they're going to do the next day and give them some information about what they're going to see. So I feel very comfortable standing in front of a group.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what exactly made you then, after retirement, decide to become a tour guide?
Like I said, I like traveling. I like to, and this is, of course, it's traveling in the Netherlands and in Belgium. But I like to meet other people and other cultures. And in this way, I meet a lot of, like Americans, Canadians, but they come all over the world. And it's very nice to meet them and to deal with them and to have good, nice conversations on the ship or outside when we're cycling. That's very, very nice. I like that.
Yeah, and also if you like traveling, then this is an opportunity to combine your passion with your job.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's very, very nice. Yeah, I love it.
Do you travel a lot?
Since I started earning money when I was 21, and working in the primary school gives you a lot of vacation in the summertime. I started traveling from then on, and I've seen a lot of countries in the world. At my house, in the bedroom, we have a map, and on the map there are flags with all the countries that I've been to. and it's quite full with
How many?
well, how many will be needed? 40, 50 at least. It's and all over the world actually. So I've been traveling. Only Australia I haven't been to, but all the other countries I've been to, and sometimes organized with groups, but sometimes also just go by myself and do it myself. But it's I love traveling.
And
Yeah.
with boat bike tours, you're now traveling mostly by bike, of course,
Yes.
and boat. But have you done that in your past?
No, not really. I'm more a hiker than a biker actually. So in holidays and vacations, I really like to go hiking, and especially in the mountains. I love that. A vacation without mountains is actually not a really nice vacation for me. So I try to go somewhere where there are mountains, and but I like to be active, and you can be active by hiking, but also by biking. And that's why I really like to work now as a tour leader on boat bike trips, because then I'm outside in the countryside, biking, being active, and that's something that I like myself as well. So it's a great combination actually.
And biking and hiking also are ways of slow travel. So do
Yeah.
you specifically enjoy that?
Yeah, by hiking you see only a very small part of a country, but biking is actually the best way to travel, because by biking you can see quite a lot of things, because you're biking for 40, 50 kilometers, and you see a lot on the way. And the big advantage of biking is also that you only see it, but you hear it, you smell it, and it's so much different, because you can go make a bus tour or drive by car somewhere, but you don't use all your senses. And by biking, you do that. Also, the wind, because that's sometimes a factor that, especially the people who are coming from America or Canada or wherever outside the Netherlands, think, Netherlands is flat, so we don't need an e-bike. It's there are no mountains there. But then the first day they experience, oh my God, they
Maybe I
have
should have
wind.
chosen for an e-bike.
Yes, that sometimes happens. Then they think, oh, can I please have an upgrade for an e-bike, because the wind is so strong here.
So what do you do in these cases?
We always make sure that there are some e-bikes available, extra e-bikes, so that we can give them an upgrade for an e-bike. But if there are too many people, okay, then we say sorry, we run out of it. But no, that's rare. Most of the time we're able to give them an e-bike. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, also, I think biking is a very nice experience to discover a country, especially when you're coming from overseas. Then often you just go from city to city in Europe and you're traveling by bus there or whatever. But now they really get to, on a bike, they get to experience the way through the countryside and
Yeah.
so on,
yeah.
discover different places without having to just fly from one city
That's
to the
true,
other.
and you have also a lot of opportunities to show them certain parts of the country and to tell about these things. If I can give an example, there's in the Netherlands you have a very, especially in Friesland in North Holland, there's a sport. No, it's a game like it's vierljeppen. Have you ever heard of vierljeppen?
I haven't.
No, vierljeppen. It's kind of high jump, no, a pole jump, but then over the water. And there are some stadiums, vierljeppen stadiums. And if I do the tour from Amsterdam to Bruges, we pass one on the way on the first day, actually, or the second day, the first day cycling. We pass one of these stadiums on the River IJssel, and then always stop there, of course, and then tell them, "What do you think? What is this?" And I said, "Oh, well, it's jump in the water or something like that." And then I tell them about this vierljeppen, and later on the ship, I show them videos about how it's going. And that I think that they really like things like that. These special things, I think that's one of the jobs of the tour leader, to show them the special things of the Netherlands, the typical Dutch things or Belgian things. And that's what I always try to do that.
Also to explain a little bit about
Yeah,
history and culture and so on.
yeah,
So you also get to teach them in a
hmm
way your culture, which
yeah.
is wonderful.
True. Yeah, yeah. That's very nice. I love that. Yeah.
Is there anything you have learned from the guests over the past years?
Yeah, of course, during the talks on the ship, you learn to know uh, things about where they live and what they do. But some topics I try to avoid, actually. And
Like what?
the topics I really try to is religion and politics. Because, yeah, especially if you're Americans, I'm not going to talk about Trump and how they feel, because I think um, it gives sometimes yeah, how do you say it, you get the you could get a bad uh, uh, yeah, atmosphere, because some people might be very much Trump minded, otherwise not, so I try to avoid it.
Yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
choice. And do you still learn something on your tours, like when you prepare for a tour, or if you're going on a new tour?
Yeah.
How do you prepare for that, and what do you learn?
Yeah, I always, before I go on a tour, I read about the routes, especially the walks, the city walks. I really need to learn how to get to know the cities. So I learn about it. I look on internet to see what interesting things can we see in the city. And in that way, like the city of Dordrecht, I didn't know anything about the city, actually. And 4 years ago, the first time I went there, and I was really surprised how beautiful the city is and how much history there was. And I didn't know anything about it, actually. And it's so close to my house, actually, because it's only 25 kilometers. But somehow I haven't been to there. And then by going there and preparing a city walk, you really learn to know a city, and you get to know it. That's very nice.
So
Yes.
you're learning something about your own
Yes.
country. That's
Yeah,
so
for
nice.
sure. Yeah, yeah. And that's and that's also other parts in the north of Holland as well. Alkmaar, city of Alkmaar, I didn't really know as well, and especially the cities, because in the countryside, I know I live in the countryside myself, so I know a lot about the countryside. But the cities, well, I'm not really a city person, but it's very interesting to visit these beautiful cities. Yes.
Can imagine.
Yeah.
And what's your favorite tour?
One of my favorite, I've more favorite tours. One of the favorite tours is the tulip tours, especially the 8-day tulip tours. And why the 8-day tulip tours? They pass my house pretty
Really?
close. Yes, yes. And I always, if I go in this tour, I tell the guests, if you are willing to cycle 300 meters more, I have a surprise for you.
Your house.
Yeah, they don't know. I don't tell them. I have a surprise for you. And okay, what's the surprise? No, I'm not going to tell that. And then, of course, they're all willing to do that. And then at a certain time, the normal route goes right, and we go left. And after 300 meters, I say, okay, welcome to the Costa del Reewijk, because that's the place where I live. And then they come to this house, and my house has a view over the lake. And then they see the lake, and they see my garden. And in my garden, there are more than 50 different kind of daffodils and lots of tulips. And of course, the theme is tulip tours. So it's really, it's also great for the theme.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then they come and they have stroopwafels and coffee, tea, and sit on the terrace. And they say,
With how many people?
20.
Okay.
About. And they're flabbergasted. Wow, this is beautiful. And I said, yeah, this is an average house in the Netherlands. Of course, not true, but yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. You got your own inclusion included.
Yeah,
in
yeah,
the
that's
tulip
nice.
tours.
That's nice. It's very nice. And they say, why do you open your house for us? I said, why not? It's these things I really like to do. Yeah.
What other things do you do to bring your own personality and your own knowledge into guiding?
Well, I studied geography in the past, so I could have been a geography teacher as well. But somehow I preferred working on primary school. But because I studied geography, I know a lot about how landscapes in the Netherlands were being formed. And I like to tell the guests also about, especially the west of the Netherlands, how the peat and the Reewikse Plas is also lakes that were started by digging peat out of it. So I tell the guests about how they were made and things like that. I really have advantage of the fact that I studied geography.
Mm-hmm.
And also I'm a very keen on nature, and I know quite a lot about the nature, and I try to tell them about the birds that are living in the west of the Netherlands, and the plants, and the typical Dutch tree, the willow. But then the I don't know the English, the knot willow, the willow with branches from the top that you cut every year. We have them as well, and I tell them about why we do that and how we use the branches and
How do you use the branches?
the branches of the willow.
Mm-hmm.
They, in the past they made baskets of it. Nowadays I don't think anymore, but they used to make baskets of it, and the farmers use them as between the different parts of the land. Because if you put a branch of a willow in the ground, a new willow is coming. It's very easy. But also with building the dikes, they made the foundation of the dikes by weaving nets of willow branches. So it's the bigger branches they used to in the stove as fuel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That's really interesting.
Yeah,
I can
yeah.
imagine that guests are very impressed by the background knowledge, and then they probably come for a different experience, or they don't think in the beginning of, oh, I'm going to learn a lot about the country or culture, and then they're getting all this additional information if they want to, and that's really great.
That's nice. I've always stop every half an hour and always know to tell something. And if there's not really something that they can see, I just start about something typical Dutch, about the culture, a cultural thing in the Netherlands, and I tell them about that. I call them the butt breaks. It's
The what?
the butt breaks, because cycling you get a quite problem with your butt at a certain time, and they really want to stretch them. So I say, okay, time for a butt break again. And they in the first, what's that? I say, yeah, just wiggle your butt and you are fresh again to start again cycling.
That's great.
Yeah.
What nationalities do you get mostly?
It depends on what tour you do. If you like, I do have done a lot of the Amsterdam Bruges tour, and on the Amsterdam Bruges tour, it's a lot of English-speaking guests, a lot of Americans, Canadians, also English, Australian, and that's popular with them because it's a good mixture of cities and countryside, and they really like to see also the beautiful old cities. Like in Belgium, Bruges, Ghent, Antwerp, in the Netherlands, Dordrecht. So that's very popular with these people. But if you go to the north of the Netherlands, the north route, that goes to the north of Holland and also to Texel, a lot of Germans are joining that group. Mostly half of the group, or sometimes more, is Germans, because they like to go to the beach, to see the dunes, the beach, the Isle of Texel. And so it depends. And yeah.
Mm-hmm. And do you see differences, or do you have to adapt a different style of guiding depending on which groups or which nationalities you're dealing with?
Not really. No. I do the same program. Only if the group is mixed, like if there are German people and Americans or English, then I have to tell them it in two languages. And my German is okay. It's not perfect, but then I tell them in German and English. But the information is the same, actually. Yeah.
So the safety briefings you're also doing in two languages always?
Yes. only if there's sometimes there are only a few German-speaking people. Then I'll ask them, okay, how is your English? Is it okay if you learn it, if we have the briefings in English, and later on I go to you and I'll ask if there are any questions or any additional information. I tell them in German. But if there are more than 3-4 German people, I always do a German briefing as well. I think they have the right of being informed in their own language then.
Yeah, that makes sense. And if you have a new group on board, what do you do to make them feel welcome or to connect them within each other or bonding?
It also depends if how big the group is. If I'm on a smaller ship, I always start with an introduction round. Then I tell them about myself, and then I ask them, can you please tell us a little bit your name, where you come from, and why you choose this tour and what you expect on this tour. But if it's a bigger group, like if the semi-guided, you could have sometimes there are ships with 70, 80 people. You can't do that, of course, because then it takes a very, very long time, this briefing. And then I'll just give the general information about safety and things like that. But it's and during the tour, I try to talk with the people after the tour or during the stops. I try to get to know them, because I like to know where they come from and what they're interested in, and always sometimes they have roots. They have grandfathers or grandmothers that were born in the Netherlands, and sometimes they want to see certain parts of, and then they ask, can we please pass that city? And if it's possible, I try to do that. But sometimes it's just too far away, and then they sometimes say, okay, then we take a taxi and we go visit them. But I try to listen to them and to adapt if possible.
Yeah, that's great. A lot of Americans and Canadians also send emails to us, to the office, and ask, which tour do you have that leads through this specific town? Because my great-grandmother was born there.
Oh, yeah.
So do you have one specific case where that happened and you got to show them the city where their ancestors were born?
It's not in the Netherlands, but in Belgium. I once had a guest who said, well, my grandparents lived in, I don't remember the city anymore. There was somewhere in between Antwerp and Ghent, and this was a semi-guided. So the guests cycled on their own, and I told them, okay, I can go with you, and together we can try to find this place. And we did it, and we found it. And of course, it was the house itself wasn't there anymore, only the environment. And so they came there, and they said, oh, thank you very much for organizing it. Yeah.
That's a really, really nice story, because I can imagine they're coming or they're waiting to do this trip for a really long time, and then it's a really magical thing for them to see where their ancestors are from.
Yeah, that happens quite a lot. That they are, but most of the time they ask their relatives to come to the place where the ship is docked. Like last trip, I had it in Dordrecht, and then they just went out with their the nephews and niece from the Netherlands and just had a good time in the city where you were docked.
But they knew each other before, or
they didn't. They just had email contact, and they saw each other then sometimes this time for the first time. So that was really very nice. Yeah. I loved it. Yes.
Yeah. Do you have other really impressive memories that stuck with you?
Well, one memory I never forget was a bit sad, actually. It was during a tour, the North Tour. I once had an experience that during the evening meal, one of the guests suddenly collapsed in the dining room. And of course, we run to him right away, the hotel manager, me, and it's this guest had a heart attack, and later on we also heard that he had a brain, some, something with his brains. So we right away we organized. There was an AED on board. So and there was one of the guest was a old German retired doctor. So he came right away, and then the captain sailed as quickly as possible to the coast. And this German guest, he survived, and he really had no memories of this whole thing happening until he was in the hospital. And but his memory was good after a few. So he was lucky actually that it happened on board of the ship, because a day earlier we were in Texel and on the middle of the island. If this would have happened there was no defibrillator on the island quickly, and I think he wouldn't have survived that. So,
Wow.
but that is something that's, I will remember that always. I was shaking after this event.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
But you also have to do a first aid course, right?
Yes. Each year we have a first aid course to refresh, especially the CPR.
Yeah.
The CPR to know what to do, and I was very lucky that we had done this for these kind of occasions, because then you know what to do, you know how to handle, and that's important. Yes.
Yeah, but still, I think it's very shocking if it
It is
happens,
shocking.
regardless
Oh,
of
yeah.
how prepared you are.
Oh yeah, sure. And we a lot of times we have guests that are a bit older, so it's that makes it extra important that you know what to do, because if you're older, of course, the risk is a bit higher for getting getting sick on board, and also on the way, if not all the guests are very good cyclists, and sometimes accidents do happen. You try to avoid them, but if there's an accident, then you know how to handle and you know how to what to do and what not to do.
What was the worst accident on a bike tour that you ever had?
I've been very lucky so far. So I didn't have any broken bones. The only thing I once had, that somebody cycled into a ditch. So that was, it was, sometimes you have very narrow cycle path, and this person didn't really know how to cycle very well, and went very slowly on the cycle. And if you go slowly, it's harder to cycle. So, and she had to, she just didn't pay attention. And she ran into the ditch. So she came out completely wet.
Did you jump after her?
I was not necessarily. No, actually, I was cycling in front, and she was cycling somewhere in the middle. So other people helped her out, and then,
How about the bike?
The bike was a bit. It was okay. We could get it out. It was not very deep. The ditches in the Netherlands are mostly very shallow, but there's a lot of mud. So she was smelling and dirty, and but these things could happen, and we try to avoid them, but it's not always possible.
No, definitely not. And most of the time, this will just be a memory for the guests, and after a couple of months they can laugh about it.
She laughed after very quickly already after it. Fortunately, the weather was not very bad. It was warm, so she said, "Oh, it's just stupid of me. I should have watched out better." So she was very easygoing. So it was nice. But these things, you try to avoid them, but sometimes these things happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you sometimes have to teach somebody how to cycle?
No, well, that's impossible. You give them some advices, like if it's very narrow, this narrow path is look forwards, keep speed, and don't look left and right, but you just keep on going. And what I notice is very difficult for guests is the roundabouts and the traffic lights, because sometimes, especially in the beginning, they know how to cycle. But if they stop, they forget to get out of the bike. So if they fall over, and that's it's really weird. We in the Netherlands are used to cycling, so we think, why didn't you get off the bike? And they just forget about it. But to learn how to cycle, it's impossible. You hear a lot of Americans or Canadians. They say, I'm very experienced cycling. I cycle a lot at home on my
home
a home
trainer.
trainer. And then I think, okay, home trainer is a bit different than cycling through Amsterdam. And that you notice. And most of the time it works out really fine, especially after a few days, they're used to it. And it's going really fine.
I think Amsterdam specifically is then the biggest challenge because traffic there can be crazy.
That's true, but the route through Amsterdam is actually pretty safe. All cycle paths. With the only thing you have a lot of traffic lights that you have to go through. We're not going to cycle through the city center of Amsterdam. That would be really
Stressful.
too dangerous, too stressful. The guests are always stressful if they go to Amsterdam, but I say it's not necessary. You don't need to. Just pay attention, watch a traffic light. Please don't go through red, because red means also here, stop. And well, sometimes they act like they want to follow me as tour guide. But I said, it's not necessary. I'll wait for you after the traffic light all the time. But sometimes they just keep on going, and that makes it dangerous sometimes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
We're coming closer to an end to the end of this
already.
episode. But I want to ask you a question that we get a lot from our guests.
Yeah.
How long are the daily cycling stages? I mean, it also depends on the tour, of course.
Yeah.
But can you give a loose guideline?
Well, it depends on what stage, like you told me. But it's in general the stage is between 40 kilometers and 60, so it's 25 miles, 30 miles. That's the general. And we have I always have a pace of 10 miles an hour, and that's for most of the people. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
So the actually cycling time is mostly 4 hours. 5 hours, and with a lot of breaks in between.
The butt breaks.
The butt breaks, yeah, and the information breaks, yes. So that's it's if you are in a reasonable condition, everybody can join and can do that. But you need to know how to cycle. That's because it's a cycle trip. Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining the episode and for giving us all this information.
Yeah.
And thank you also for everyone who listened or watched to this episode. And if you want to listen to our other episodes, you can do that on our website, boatbiketours.com, or Spotify or YouTube. Thank you for listening.